I should know this by heart now since this is the second service, but I don't. I do know good morning, everyone. Good morning. Excellent. I am excited to be celebrating with you Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is an African American holiday which celebrates family, community, and culture. It was created in 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karenga, a professor of African Studies. Kwanzaa, a 7-day cultural festival, begins December 26th and ends January 1st. During the holiday, families and communities organize activities around the Nguzo Zaba, or the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Participants also celebrate with feasts, the karamu, music, dance, poetry, drumming, as you just heard so lively, narratives, and the holiday ends with a dedication of reflection, recommitment to the 7 principles and other central cultural values. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing to you Ms. Donna Washington, Dr. Donna Washington, who is featured throughout the program today. She will be doing the pouring of the libations, but before Dr. Washington comes forward, I'd like to share a little bit about her. Donna Washington is an award-winning, internationally known master storyteller. If you were here for the first service, you would say amen to that. Amen. Okay. She's an artist, educator, an author who has been providing workshops and performing for audiences of all ages for over 36 years. She is renowned for her storytelling for both children and adults, from poignant and funny fables about the human condition to racy relationship stories to spine-tingling tales of terror. She has been featured at numerous festivals, schools, libraries, theaters, and other venues around the world, including Canada, Peru, Ireland, Argentina, and Hong Kong, just to name a few. In 2020, she co-founded the nonprofit organization Artists Standing Strong Together with master storyteller Sheila Arnold, for which they won the 2021 Oracle Award. In 2022, she received the Colleen Sally Storytelling Award. She has authored numerous articles in storytelling and education, including her very popular blog, Language, Literacy, and Storytelling. She is also the author of 6 children's books, which you can find in the back on the right-hand side here. Little Rabbit Kwanzaa, A Pride of African Tales, The Story of Kwanzaa, A Big Spooky House, I bought that one. Award-winning Boo Stew, I bought that one too. And her latest book, Prack Fills the House. She travels all over the world performing and presenting workshops. She lives with her husband and cat in Durham, North Carolina. Dr. Donna Washington.
Good morning, everyone. So we're going to start today with a traditional pouring of libations. And before we begin, what I would like you to do is I would like you to think of someone who is no longer with us, who had either a big impact in your life, or someone who had a huge impact on the community or the country or even the world. Come up with someone. Hold that name in your heart. At some point during the pouring, I will ask you to either speak their name out loud if you want to, or you can keep it in your heart and just hold on to that. All right? Here we go. We pour this libation for everyone who has gone before, for those who stood up against hatred and oppression, though it cost them everything, for those who kept freedom alive for all of us, in our darkest hours. We pour this libation for those who kept our stories and our songs, our music, to give us joy when things were difficult. We pour this libation for everyone who came before. If you would now like to share the name of someone who you would pour this libation for, you may do so now. Check it once. Thank you for giving us a place to stand on your shoulders so that we can see the future.
I go. I go. Greetings, I am Baba McDaniel, Artistic Director of the Harame Collective, the African American Dance Ensemble, and we bring you greetings today as a part of the sharing for your showcase and sharing in this moment. Before I go on, I want to share with you the language that I use throughout the program, the ago and the ame. Ago means, are you listening? Ame means, yes, I am listening. It's the Twi language of the Akan people of Ghana. So if I say ago, you respond by saying, ago, ago. Let's clap our hands 3 times. Tap our shoulders 3 times. Snap it out 3 times. Make a big circle and say, umoja. Umoja is unity, which is the first principle of Kwanzaa, and is what we have here today, unity. Now let's add on the tag, bring peace around us. Now let's put it all together. I go, I go, I go. Umoja, bring peace around us. Give yourselves a big round of applause. You're wonderful. So as you know, Kwanzaa's first fruits, what we have is a sharing is what we have today. So of course, I'm just not gonna stand up here and do all the work. I'm gonna add you into my product, which is called Fabulous. All right? So I'm gonna do I call it my it's a handmade Kwanzaa song. Years ago, we learned from one of the elders years ago when I was touring with Baba Chuck years ago around the world. But it's you're saying with all of the, well, I'm not gonna put you into a lot of work today. I just need you to keep my tempo. So let's go with the tempo. Wait a minute, you're getting faster. Ta, ha, ki, nguzo saba, umoja oye, kuji chagolia, ujima, ujama, niaka umba imani harambe oye, nguzo saba, oye, kuji chagolia, ujima, ujama, niaka umba imani harambe oye. Inguza saba umoja oye, kuji chagolia, ujima, ujama, niaka umba humane harambe oye. Inguza saba umoja oye, kuji chagolia, ujima, ujama, niaka umba imane harambe oye. Inguzo Saba, Inguzo Saba, Inguzo Saba. I go. Repeat after me. Peace, love, respect for everybody, for our elders, for our youth, for our ancestors, for everybody, for everybody.
The energy is palpable in the sanctuary today. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. Will those of you who are here with us in person please stand as you are able for our chalice lighting? And if you have a chalice at home, I invite you to light it with us at this time. As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to nurturing the spirits of one another and the common good of the world we share. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home. And I invite you to remain standing for our opening hymn this morning, number 1064, Blue Boat Home. Thank you. You may be seated. Good morning, everyone. My name is Allison, and I am so glad to serve as part of your worship team this morning. Whether you are a first-time visitor or a long-time member, I'd like to offer you a special welcome. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive, liberally religious, and actively serving the common good of our shared world. Whoever you are, and wherever you are on your own spiritual journey, you are welcome here. This morning, Eleanor Goodwin, one of our lay ministers, will be available in the front right corner of the sanctuary over here after the service to talk with anyone who might be experiencing difficult circumstances in their lives and would appreciate speaking with someone. I hope all of you will read through the chalice you received by email on Friday about everything happening around here at UUFR and check out the upcoming events section on our website. I'd just like to highlight a few items for you now. First, registration for Chalice Circles, our most popular program for adults, is happening now, but the deadline for signing up for the winter and spring Chalice Circles is December 31st. Dun, dun, dun. So, if you're looking for a way to connect more deeply with others and explore your own spiritual path, please check out the link in the chalice or on the front page of our website. Our next Saturday social will be happening on Saturday, January 11th. As before, this event will feature a potluck, a game night, a song swap, and a movie in the sanctuary. Who could ask for anything more? In addition, also on January 11th, there will be a special Shakespeare performance here at UUFR. Dan Decker of Carolina Shakespeare is working to bring Shakespeare into our public schools. I hope that we can all attend his 20-minute performance of Macbeth on Saturday, the 11th at 4:30 p.m. in the sanctuary. It's been reimagined as a mashup, so it's a unique version of the play designed to be performed in classrooms. And this performance is a fundraising event, so please come with open hearts, open minds, and open wallets. Our in-person social hour this morning will be downstairs in Founders Hall and will feature special Kwanzaa foods, including my husband's vegetarian collard greens. They're very good. I hope you can all join us. I now invite you to meet and greet your neighbor.
All right, folks, I think we want to start the next portion of the program. This will be a time for all ages with Donna Washington.
All right. Well, today is the Nguzo Saba of the day. Nguzo Saba are the principles, and today's is Ujamaa, which means cooperative economics. So our story for the children today is about money. Cooperative economics means that we share what we have. If there are Black-owned businesses in your area, that you should spend money there. And we also include independent bookstores and things like that. So our story today is about taxes. The point of our taxes is you pay the government, and then the government does things with our money as a collective that you cannot do by yourself. And when something breaks down and the government isn't doing their job, then it becomes a problem. So this story is called One Man, One Fish. And it's a participatory story, so please do not sit and stare at me. Your part is really easy. It looks like this. One man, one fish. Say it with me. One man, one fish. The story goes like this. Once there was an emperor who was very, very greedy. When his people paid the taxes, instead of sending them back to the people with different kinds of things like building roads or infrastructure or helping people who need help, he just built himself big palaces. He had the best clothes, he ate the best food, he was very happy. His people suffered. One day, at the far end of his kingdom, a man came in with a fishing pole, and he came to the first big body of water he found. He put the fishing pole in the water, and as soon as he did, a great big fish caught it. He pulled out that big fish. He gave that fish to the first man he saw and said, if you know anyone else, bring them over. I'll give everybody one fish. And that's what happened. People started lining up, and he would stick his pole into the water, and as soon as he pulled it up, big fish. He handed out fish to everyone who came down, and of course they went back to town, and they were able to eat well. And what they had left over, because there was so much bounty, they were able to pickle it and salt it, and there was food for many days to come. Well, word went through the kingdom that there was a man giving everybody one fish, because that's what he was doing. Every time he'd stop near a body of water, he'd just give everybody one fish. Well, the emperor came to hear about this, and he decided that he, the emperor, should have way more fish than everyone else. And whenever he got hold of this man, he was going to just keep him and make this man just give him fish. So there came a point where the fisherman was by a body of water that was near where the emperor was, and as soon as he heard he was there, he said, go down and get him. And they said, all right. And he said, the emperor said, I want to see what he's up to. So down they went, and the emperor saw long lines of people, the man pulling out fish after fish and giving everyone one fish. Well, the emperor went down, pushed his way forward and said, I'm the emperor. And he said, okay. I want a fish, no problem. He gave him one fish. Well, the emperor was shocked that someone had handed him a fish. He gave it to someone else, and he said, I want another one. And the man said, remember, can you do it with me? One man, one fish. But I'm the emperor. I know. I want more fish. No, said the man. One man, one fish. But I'm the emperor. I know. The emperor was furious. Grab him. Take him to my palace. And so they did. They got the fisherman. They took him up to the palace. And the emperor said, okay, I want you to give one fish to all my guards. And he said, all right, bring me a glass of water. And they did. And they put the water down in the middle of the floor. He put the fishing pole into the glass of water and pulled out a great big fish. And he handed it to the guards. Each guard got a fish, and as they got their fish, they passed it around until there was one barrel by the king and the emperor, and they all put their fish in the barrel. But when he looked in the barrel, there was only one fish. And the man said, what happened to all my fish? And the fisherman said, one man, one fish. But the emperor didn't care by this point because he had figured it out. The magic fishing pole was where the fish were coming from. And he was the emperor. He ought to have a magic fishing pole. And he jumped up from his throne and he ran over and he grabbed the fishing pole. Now, this is a man who is not used to people telling him no. So when he pulled, he was quite shocked when the fisherman pulled back. You give me this fishing pole. And the fisherman just pulled it back. And pretty soon, they were rolling around on the ground, the emperor trying to get the fishing pole, and the fisherman trying to keep the fishing pole. Guards didn't know what to do. Eventually, the emperor gave one great big jerk and pulled the fishing pole out of the fisherman's hand and said, ha-ha, I have it. And the fisherman said, oh, thank heavens. And the emperor said, what? And the fisherman got up and he said, I used to be an emperor. And one day, this man came into my empire with this fishing pole, and I took it from him. And I'm going to tell you what he told me. He said, you must wander this earth, giving everybody one fish until you find someone greedier than you who will take it from you. And then they will be forced to travel. The emperor said, no, I don't want to do that. And he said, And then the emperor's feet began to walk him out of the throne room. And the Raggedy Man sat there smiling. And the guard said, would you like to be the new emperor? You seem to have learned a thing or two. And he said, yes. And so he became their new emperor, and he was good to his people, making sure that what they sent in was sent back to them tenfold. And that is the story.
So we're going to I got to follow the program. Is it time now? Okay.
March, unity. We are kind to siblings and friends to keep our community strong.
Kuji Chagulia, self-determination. We believe in ourselves and know that we can do anything that we put our minds to.
Ujima, collective work and responsibility. When a neighbor is in need, we help them.
Ujama, cooperative economics. Shop at locally owned businesses and support Black-owned businesses.
Nia, purpose. We choose a goal and work toward it little by little.
Kumba, creativity. We explore our own talents and we enjoy things of others. Imani, faith. We believe in our communities, ourselves, and the power of serving the common good.
At this time, we invite our children to come with us to child care. This week is a little bit different. Children 1st through 8th grade are all going to come over to 201 Peace Hall. So you're going to head over to that corner. And then children younger than 1st grade are going to head over to that corner with Miss Andrea for Sunshine Circle. If you didn't get a chance to sign in your kids, it's not too late. The binders are back over there. Or middle schoolers, you can sign yourself in. Thank you so much.
Good morning, beloveds. My name is Sandy Pierce, and I'm a member of your board of directors. I'll be downstairs in the social hour near the food if you have any questions that you'd like to ask. Everything that we do at UUFR is possible because of the generous financial support that we all provide. For those of you who have set up automated giving to UUFR or who send in a check every month in the mail, I'd like to thank you for your generosity. If you'd like to make a contribution today, you can do that in person and bring it forward and put it in one of our offering plates. If you would prefer to have an usher come to you, just raise your hand. You may also give by using one of the methods on the screen. Our offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Our reading today will be by Carolyn Doe. It's a poem by Amanda Gordon called Closure.
To begin again isn't to go backwards, but to decide to go. Our story is not a circle carved, but a spiral, shed, shaped, spinning, shifting inward and outward ad infinitum. Like a lung on the bank of speech, breathe with us. We disembark both beside and beyond who we are and who we are. It is a return and a departure. We spiral on, pushing up and out, like a growing thing, making us form out of earth. In a poem, there's no end, just a place where the page glows wide and waiting, like a lifted hand, poised and paused. Here is our bond, unbordered by bone. Perhaps love is how it feels to breathe the same air. All we have is time, is now. Time takes us on. How we are moved says everything about what we are to each other and what are we to each other, if not everything.
Waiting for this. All right, our next song is called Fanga. Anybody who's been to a drum circle would have heard of this song. It's a dance of welcome, and it came to the U.S. from a place that helped found years ago the West African nation of Liberia. The slides show the history of it in more detail than I'll talk about, but the drum and dance rhythms were brought to the U.S. in the 1930s by Asadada Dafora, who was a descendant of former African-American slaves who had resettled into a country called Sierra Leone in West Africa. In 1960, Laroque Bey, a musician in Harlem, New York City, placed the words from the Yoruba people in Nigeria to the enslaved people's plantation days song, Little Liza Jane, added that to the Fanga dance, and that's the song that we'll be singing and dancing in a few minutes. So a dance from a nation in Africa that was founded by former African-American slaves came back to America and became a standard of African-American cultural presentations and drum circles. We'd love for everybody to sing along in your seats and dance along as Steve teaches the lyrics to the song and Melissa teaches the dance as she learned it from the African-American Dance Ensemble in Durham.
First, I'll sing it in English, and then I'll sing it in the traditional.
Welcome and peace to you, let it be so. Welcome and peace to you, let it be so. Sanga, alafia, ashe, ashe. Sanga, alafia, ashe, ashe. Ashe, ashe.
I'm winded. Good morning. Oh, I'm so happy to be here this morning. So much fun. I would like to begin this part of the service the way we traditionally do it at our house. On Kwanzaa mornings, someone says, habari gani, which basically means, what's the news? So the first word is habari. You say that with me? Habari. And the second word is gani. So you say habari gani. And then I will answer with the Nguzo Saba, or the principle of the day. So let's do it. Here we go. Ujamaa, which means cooperative economics, as we have already covered. Now, what this means is you get a chance to find out about small businesses in your community that you might not have patronized. So what you do on Ujamaa is you find out what Black-owned businesses are in your area or small businesses. Now, when Maulana Karenga first envisioned this, he was definitely looking at Black-owned businesses, but small businesses also work because they're small and they need our help in the community. So find out where they are, and if you do this, you will discover all sorts of businesses you did not know were in your community. Sometimes it's restaurants, sometimes it's boutique-type places, but you'll find them and you will become a patron. So Kwanzaa is about investing in your community. And you at UUFR, you're one step ahead. You're already investing in your community and putting your money towards a Black-owned business because you haven't hired the African American Dance Theater to be here this morning. The Kikombe, what do you guys call it? The Karambe Collective. The Harambe Collective. They're here this morning. Thank you very much. And thank you for the drummers that we have. Thank you very much for being here this morning. And it's important that you invest in Black-owned business, but it's also really important that you hire artists and not ask them to volunteer, because this is their job. People often ask me to volunteer for things, and I don't ever say this, but I always want to say, as soon as I get my artist card in the mail, my artist card allows me to go to the grocery store and say, yes, I'm not going to pay for these groceries because I am an artist. No one pays me, I'm not paying you. So thank you for supporting artists and for being part of the solution. Really appreciate that. Now, the thing about Kwanzaa is that it is part of something called the philosophy of plenty. We talked about that a little bit in the first story that I told, One Man, One Fish. The philosophy of plenty is very different from the philosophy of scarcity. We practice the philosophy of scarcity here in America. And the idea is, there's not many, I need all of them. Or, there's not many, they should be expensive. The philosophy of plenty turns that on its head. And it is a philosophy that comes out of many places in Africa. And that philosophy is this: if I have something to give, and you need it, and I don't give it to you, and something happens to you because your lack of that thing, that's on me. That is my fault, because there was plenty. If we share what we have, there is plenty. If you hoard, there will be a scarcity. So one of the things we do at Kwanzaa time is we spend a lot of time making music and dancing and telling stories. And because I am a storyteller, I'm gonna tell you two more. And I'm gonna tell you one right now. And it's about one of my absolute favorite characters, and you can't have Kwanzaa, at least in my home, without hearing at least one Anansi story over the course of the Kwanzaa time. Now, for those of you who do not know, Anansi is the West African trickster. He is a spider. He often gets in trouble, but he usually teaches people things, all right? So, even if you don't know who he is, you've heard of him in maybe one of his other forms. Anansi started off in West Africa. He jumped all over Africa, turning into different kinds of animals. If you hear trickster stories about Dik-Dik or guinea fowl, you are most likely hearing an Anansi story. When the enslaved Africans were brought out of Africa and brought here to the New World, one of the first places they were taken was to the Caribbean to work the sugar plantations. And when they got there, they weren't allowed to speak their languages, worship their religions, or tell their stories. But they wanted to keep Anansi, their trickster, and so they turned him into a woman. So if you go to the Caribbean, you can find all these great stories about a very tricky woman named Aunt Nancy. It's Anansi the spider. Here in America, when we arrived here, the enslaved Africans weren't allowed to speak their languages, worship their religions, or tell their stories. They wanted to keep Anansi the spider. They turned him into a rabbit. He is the basis of Brer Rabbit. And Brer Rabbit is the spirit of the African American people. He is a very different trickster from any other trickster in the world. He can be caught, but only temporarily. He always finds his way to safety. He always gets away. No other trickster in the world is like that. Lots of them get caught or killed or harmed. Brer Rabbit always has to get away because he is the spirit of freedom for the African American people. Then He jumped all over America, and he got mixed up with the Asian tricksters who came in with the people who ended up having started building railroads and doing the labor out west. And he also got mixed up with the European tricksters who came over here, the Road Runner and the Coyote, all these things. And then somewhere in the 1940s, they all turned into Bugs Bunny. So, when you see Bugs Bunny, you are in fact seeing a little piece of Africa. So here is an Anansi story. It's called Onini and the Pot. Now, Onini had a giant bean pot. It was the biggest one in the area, and he loved it because he could give these huge parties, and so many people would come and get something to eat. And he never would lend it to anyone because he didn't want anyone else to have parties as big as his. He was very greedy. He hoarded it to himself. Now, Anansi the spider came to visit him one day and said, Onini, I really need to borrow your pot. I'm having a big to-do, and I need to have enough food. Please, can I borrow it? And he says, no. Please, no. But Anansi's annoying. Please, 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 please. Okay, fine, stop. You can have it. One day, you bring it back. Okay. So Anansi brought the pot home. He had a big party. People came from all over. They were eating beans. Onini stayed home. He was kind of grouchy about the whole thing. But after the food was gone and the party was over, he expected Anansi to bring the pot back, but he did not. He came and brought a little pot. And he said, what is this? Anansi said, your pot had a baby. Okay. And Onini kept the new pot. Well, the next day, Anansi brought the regular pot back, and Onini thought, oh, that's interesting. Well, a month later, Anansi came to his door and knocked on the door, and Onini said, what do you want? I want to borrow your pot again. I have another to do. And Onini said, no. He said, please, 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 please. Okay, fine. But I want it back the next day. No problem. Anansi took it home. There was a big to-do. People came from all over. Onini stayed home. He was a little grouchy about the whole thing. When the food was done and the party was over, Anansi returned, but he did not bring a pot. The big one he borrowed, he didn't bring that. He didn't bring one. He brought 2 little pots. He said, this time your pot had twins. Onini said, thank you. And he kept the 2 pots. Anansi said, I'll bring your big pot back. It's just not in any shape to travel right now. The next day, he brought the big pot back. And he thought, this is great. The entire time I've had this pot, it's never had babies before. Well, about a month later, Anansi went to Onini's house, and when he showed up, Onini was waiting for him in the doorway with the pot. And he says, sure, you can have it. Yeah, good, enjoy yourself. He figured maybe he'll have quadruplets this time. Well, Anansi had the big thing. People came over to eat, and Onini waited at home, and the next day, Anansi did not bring him anything. No pots, nothing. And as he was going to go over there and tell Anansi off, he realized that there was a funeral procession. And that's when he thought, oh no, maybe that big thing that Anansi was doing was because someone has died. And I didn't go, so I don't know who it is. And he wants always for people to know that he knows everything. He's the big man in the community. So he was worried. So he put on his best morning clothes. He got in the back of the procession, and he started wailing as loudly as anybody, tearing his clothes. Oh, the whole thing, all the way up to the funeral, but he still had no idea who died. And when everything was done and people were leaving, he still didn't know. And so he thought, I better find this out. So he pulled Anansi aside and he said, Anansi, who died? And Anansi said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, no one told you. Your bean pot died. Onini said, what? He said, yeah, your bean pot died. I'm so sorry. He said, that's ridiculous. A bean pot cannot die. And Anansi looked right at him and said, if it can have babies, it can die. And he kept Onini's bean pot, but he lent it out to anyone who wanted it. The philosophy of plenty. So many of the stories that are about the philosophy of plenty, they take the opposite road. They show you what will happen to you if you don't share. So I did not grow up celebrating Kwanzaa. I had no idea what it was. I'd never heard of it. The first time I heard about it, I was at university. I was at Northwestern, right outside of Evanston, and there was some discussion going on, and I heard somebody say something about it being Black Christmas. Well, I don't know if you noticed, but I am black, and I never heard of it. So I was like, well, I don't, was that Black Christmas? And so then we're like, oh, you don't celebrate Kwanzaa? No, I never heard of it. Oh. Okay. And just so you know, I was the color in my department. So they didn't have anyone else to ask. Some years later, I was doing an artist in residence at a school, and one of the teachers walks up to me and says, I've got some family and their kid is out for the next couple of days, and they say it's because of Kwanzaa. Is Kwanzaa still going on? How would I know? I don't know. I don't celebrate Kwanzaa. And she was like, oh. And then she got kind of embarrassed and she just walked away. So those were my first 2 encounters with the idea of Kwanzaa. Then, a little later on that year, the editor at the book company where I had just had a book published said, would you write us a book about Kwanzaa? It's like, I don't know anything about Kwanzaa. Could you research it and write a book about Kwanzaa? I was like, look, how about if I just celebrate it once? And then maybe I can write a book about Kwanzaa. So I celebrated it, and I loved it. It was amazing. At that point, I was not a Unitarian. I was still Catholic. But my soul was leaning towards Unitarianism. Kwanzaa is an activist festival, a social justice festival. Each day asks you the question, how are you living in your community with your family, with the people around you? How are you doing that? Each day asks you to focus on what you have done over the past year, what you will do now, and what you will do in the coming year. And each day asks you to do something with your community. Each day does that. I don't know how often you give. Unitarians, we're pretty givey people. But Kwanzaa asks you to think specifically about what you are doing. And the entire time I was celebrating this, all I could think was, everybody should do this. Everybody should do this. And when it began, of course, it was really focused in the African American community. And now it has sort of expanded out at really looking at independent groups and smaller groups, people who need service, who need to be seen. And so I fell in love with it. I ended up writing a couple of books about it. And it is not Black Christmas. After I finished writing the books, I was interviewed by television and radio. People wanted to find out more about it. And it was getting more popular. And I got a question that I was unprepared for the first time. And it was, well, Kwanzaa's a made-up holiday, right? I mean, it's just made up. I don't remember what I said. But what I wish I had said was, name a holiday that isn't made up. The reason we have them is because we chose to celebrate them. We decided to do it as a group, and it's kept going. There's no tree somewhere growing organic holidays, and you pull it off, and this is how you celebrate it. The celebrations we have in this country are because people decided to celebrate them. Kwanzaa was created by a man named Maulana Karenga, Dr. Maulana Karenga, and the reason he did it was because throughout the year we have celebrations in this country, but they're all based on other groups of people. Immigrants who came from other places, like our Christmas, the Germans did that. When our country was founded, it was illegal to have a federal holiday for Christmas because, church and state separated. The Germans showed up, they had really fun Christmas. And we adapted it, and we created American Christmas. There is St. Patrick's Day. There are other things that happen over the course of the year that celebrate different groups of people, but what Maulana Karenga realized was there was no single festival or holiday that celebrated the contributions African Americans have made to this country. And so, just as if you want to read a book and it's not on the shelves, you should write it. If there's a festival you want to have and it's not there, you create it. And so he brought us Kwanzaa. The words in Kwanzaa are the Pan-African language Swahili, which is spoken in lots of places in Africa. And again, these words, these days, they are to inspire us to live better in our communities. Now, at the beginning, we poured a libation for our ancestors. And a lot of what Kwanzaa is about is remembering that we didn't get here by ourselves. We didn't build this. We're just part of this process. And if we do our part, the process can keep going on. And so here is another story that comes out of Kwanzaa that is about how we honor people and why it's important. Ogalusa was a hunter, and he had great magic in him, such that he could go out every day and hunt and bring home enough food to feed his family, which was a good thing because he had a big family, he had a lot of kids. He had 8. And one day, he got his spear, and he went out, and he didn't come home. That night, his children sat at the table, and they were passing the food around, and someone asked, "Where is our father? Where is Ogalusa?" And nobody knew. Well, they finished their dinner, they went to bed. The next day, they were in town, and someone said, "We haven't seen your father. Where is Ogalusa? Where is he?" And they said, "We don't know." And the next night again, when they were having supper, someone asked, "Where is Ogalusa?" And no one had an answer. And days went on like this, days and days and days and months, and eventually people stopped asking the question. He was just gone. They didn't ask where he was, and if they did miss him, it was only in their hearts. Until his youngest daughter, Tuli, who was really small when he disappeared, was growing and growing and growing, but she never said anything. Nothing. Until one morning at breakfast, she picked her head up and she said, "Where is Ogalusa? Where is my father?" And they all looked at her and said, "We don't know." And she said, "What do you mean you don't know? Where is he? Go find him." Well, they thought about it, and someone said, "You know what? I saw him take his spear. He must have gone hunting." Oh, and they all ran to the door, but then they stopped and said, "Well, how can we find him after so long?" And one of the children said, I didn't want to say anything, but I have my own magic. Father is good at hunting. I can track anything, no matter how long ago it went by. This will track him then. And so that child tracked, and they went into the rainforest, and they found Ogalusa. He had been hunting something, had been attacked by a big cat. He'd killed the big cat, and the big cat had killed him. And they sat around looking at the bones. And one child said, "Okay, so I also have a magic. I can put all these bones back together." They said, "Well, you should do that." And so they did. They reconstructed. He was skeletonized right there on the ground. And another one said, "You know what? I can put the bones and I can put the sinew and the muscles back on the bones." Well, you do that then. And so he did. And then another one said, I can put the skin back on. And they put the skin back on. I can put blood back in him, and I can make his heart beat. And they did that. And then all the children grabbed hands, and they sang together. And their joy and their hope went up into the air and met the joy and the hope of others and came back down and filled Ogalusa, and he sat up. And they said, "You're back." And he said, Yes, I'm back." And he stood up, and the children laughed, and they all went home, and Ogalusa put himself into confinement, because apparently that's what you do when you come back from the dead. He shaved his head, and the family slaughtered a cow, and Ogalusa took the cow tail. Now they went to town, the village, they told everyone that Ogalusa was back and there was going to be a big feast, and everyone came to the house, and when Ogalusa came out of his quiet time, his time of reflection, he had created a beautiful cowtail switch. It had cowrie shells and beads. It was beautiful. And everybody knew that at this revival, he was going to give a gift to someone, and they knew it was going to be that cowtail switch. It was so beautiful, everybody wanted it. So over the course of the celebration, people started stopping in and saying, "You know, Ogalusa, you and I, we've been friends for a long time. Remember, we used to go hunting together when we were younger. You should give that cowtail switch to me." "Oh, no. Ogalusa, don't you remember when you were younger, you and your friend used to steal cakes off of my windowsill, and I never stopped you. Oh, don't you remember? I'm the one who taught you what to read." Blah, blah. Everyone had some thought about why they should get the cowtail switch. And eventually, Ogalusa got tired of it, and he said, Stop, everyone stop. I will give this to one of my children, and I will pick the one who did the most to bring me here today. Well, the children began puffing themselves up. "I put your bones together. You couldn't have done that if I hadn't tracked him. Doesn't matter if you tracked him. I put his skin back on. He would look weird without his skin." Everyone just was talking about what they did. And then the people from the town lined up around each child, and they advocated for this or advocated for that, until finally Ogalusa said, "I will give this cowtail switch to Turi, my youngest, because she did the most to bring me here today. She remembered me. And as long as we live in the hearts and minds of those who love us, we are never fully gone." So what is Kwanzaa? Kwanzaa is about the philosophy of plenty. There is enough to share if we share it. Kwanzaa is about working together to build the beloved community. Kwanzaa is about remembering that we are only part of a continuum, that the people who've come before us hold us up, and we stand on their shoulders so that we can see the future. Happy Kwanzaa, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Washington, for those very meaningful and wonderful words about Kwanzaa. We're going to, just before we sing the hymn, I just wanted to briefly thank everyone who helped plan this Kwanzaa event. We started at the last moment, but it came together very nicely. They say it takes a village, and we really had a village of folks who helped plan and put this together. Sitting in the audience here, I won't name everybody because I'll forget, but we want to thank everybody, the drummers, the dancers, the performers, the folks who brought the food, you who came out and helped us celebrate. This was our maiden voyage, and we really thank you for helping us to make it a great success. Again, it takes a village, and Dr. Washington said, this is what Kwanzaa is all about. This is what Kwanzaa is all about, living our values in a real way. So thank you. Let's give everybody a round of applause. And for our drummers and dancers, let's give them another one, because they killed it. And now, would you stand as you're able, and we'll sing, lift every voice and sing it's number 149 in your hymnal. closing words from Dr. Washington.
A man went to see a prophet, and he said, "Will you please tell me the difference between heaven and hell?" And the prophet said, "That's easy." So the prophet said, "Close your eyes," and he did. And when he opened his eyes, he was in a banqueting room, and the tables were groaning with food, but the people standing in there were thin and wan, and they were starving in the midst of plenty. And he noticed that their arms were outstretched, and though they could pick up the food, they couldn't raise their arms very high. There was no way to get it to their mouths. And so even though there was plenty of food, they were all starving. And the man said, "Oh, so this must be hell. It must mean you just can't get what you want or what you need." And the prophet said, "Well, close your eyes again." And he did. And when he opened his eyes, he was in what looked like the same banqueting hall. And the tables were groaning with food, but these people were happy. They were well fed and they were laughing. Their arms were still stretched out, and they couldn't raise them. But when he looked closer, he realized they were feeding each other. It's Kwanzaa time. Go out and make heaven.